con artists. I talked with an assistant U.S. attorney about the fraud in federal programs that totaled billions of dollars. All right, so joining us here is Cindy Chang with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and you're here to talk about Paradise Williams, who was this person that was apparently behind this big theft case, one of the biggest in the country, and just sentenced to 5 years, right?
Correct.
And what do we know about what she was accused of doing?
So Paradise Williams, she was living in Kent at the time when she started defrauding all of the different government pandemic assistance programs throughout the pandemic, including programs that are supposed to help small businesses, like the Paycheck Protection Program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. She also filed fraudulent claims for unemployment. And then later in the pandemic, she defrauded the Emergency Rental Assistance Program of over $2.8 million. And that $2.8 million is the largest amount to date that we know of that's been stolen from the Emergency Rental Assistance Program.
It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of
So
money.
what was she apparently using that money for?
She, based on the evidence we gathered, she used it not for rental, her own rent necessarily, but she used it for expensive cars, designer goods. She took luxury trips around the world to places like Dubai. And she also used it, and she did use it on rent, but it was on luxury apartment complexes in Arizona that had things like resort-like living and things like that.
Is there any other, restitution, any other actions that maybe she or some of the other co-defendants have had?
So she and the co-defendants and her co-defendants who have pled guilty have all been ordered to pay restitution. She's responsible for the entire amount of approximately $3.3 million. It's joint and severable in a couple different ways for, everyone's responsible, but she has responsible for the total amount. The court has also ordered the Lexus and Range Rover that she purchased with the criminal funds to be seized. So those have been seized as well.
I have to imagine that investigations like these are quite complex, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of parts to them.
Uh-huh.
How do they even start?
They start in a lot of different ways. Sometimes they are anonymous tips that come in from the public. There are sometimes flags from financial institutions and banks of suspicious transactions. And also sometimes even publicly reported information from, the news.
So it's there's a lot that goes into it, right? And
Yeah.
I would imagine that it's probably a lot of time that goes into you're getting a lead about a particular case, and then eventually you hope to get a sentence, right? What kind of goes into that?
Yeah. So, I mean, our cases that we end up charging tend to require a lot of resources to bring them to the point where they're charged in court. And in this particular case, Paradise Williams' conduct was so broad that at some point in the beginning, we had multiple federal investigations open against her because she was using a lot of different deceptive techniques and different aliases. And so it took us a little bit of time to figure out, this is actually all tied to the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it actually was FBI Special Agent Katie Moran, who is an 18-year veteran of the Bureau and investigates some of the most complex white-collar cases in our district. And she put together all of the pieces of the evidence to kind of pull all of the different frauds that she was committing into one. We reviewed bank records, executed search warrants on Ms. Williams' home, on her computer, on her cell phones, and pieced together all of that evidence to bring the charges and identify her 5 co-defendants who were amongst the most proactive and willing participants in the scheme.
When we're talking